Good morning, UBC. I am excited to be joining you. I have a quick disclaimer. It is storming in Waco. So if you hear a big crash of lightning or thunder, I apologize, but we'll just keep trying to go through. As I have been since March of 2020, I am grateful for the technology that brings us together. I want to say a special thank you to your own Pastor Natalie for not only inviting me to preach, but also welcoming me on this special Pride service. It brings me so much joy to partner with y'all as we celebrate God's beautiful, queer, and inclusive family. At this time, please join me in a word of prayer. Our Mosaic God, we sing your praises and we seek to be fed this day with a word from you. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, our rock and redeemer. Amen. I don't always have the best timing when it comes to personal insights. For example, I once sat outside a friend's house for 20 minutes writing as they waited for me. Despite the poor timing, I was writing about masking, how I can remember the day when I learned how to become what others wanted me to be. I was a kid of undiagnosed ADHD and anxiety with an abusive older brother. My mom is an incredible woman who was the glue holding our family together, while my dad underwent 6 major back surgeries before he was 40. During all of that, I realized that I was just too much. Too excitable, too anxious, too playful, too loud, too sad. At some point, I started putting parts of myself into boxes, which were only be opened on days where kids were allowed to be too much, like Christmas, birthdays, or Saturdays. And it kind of worked. Adults love compliant children. We may not want to admit it, but we love when instructions are followed, tantrums are minor, and the day's agenda can happen with ease. So every time an adult commented on how good or helpful I was, it was like another brick in the wall for the reasons why I should quietly conform. Box up my messiness. Be less, be small. But some boxes can be taped down for only so long. I wrote about all of this while my friends were in their house watching our favorite TV show, Naked and Afraid. So, like I said, not the best timing for personal insights. In today's reading, Paul casts this vision of a frail clay pot holding all the mystical power of the divine. No matter what the pot has gone through, no matter the slander slurred against it, no matter the valleys of despair it sat through or the sorrows of its heart, the power within the frail pot sustained it. The best thing about this image is there's no way to deny how odd and unrealistic the pot's strength is. You look at a clay pot and you're supposed to think, oh, well, this will break easily. I probably shouldn't use it. Logic says no matter what is inside, it is wasted and pointless, worthless. But Paul knew better. At this point, Paul is writing to a church who is doing the exact opposite of what a community is supposed to do. People are suing each other over church conflicts. The communal meal split the church into camps. There was sexual misconduct. Stable is not the word that I would use to describe this church. Yet Paul writes love letters to Corinth. This church is his family, his heart, his home. He sees the messiness of the church, and instead of reading it to filth for not being Christ-like, he tries to remind them of something bigger than their conflict. He reminds them of their weakness, which, as you may or may not know, isn't the strongest argument for repairing bad blood, but he reminds them that they are clay jars with a hidden treasure buried deep inside. He reminds them that the pretending, the power struggles, and the fights are quite simply masks, preventing them from seeing God's image stamped on each other. Since I've already outed my terrible taste in television, I will also admit that I love RuPaul's Drag Race. Despite his highly problematic tendencies, RuPaul Charles has some iconic sayings. In fact, one of them inspired today's sermon. She says, "We're all born naked and the rest is drag." Drag is an expressive break from reality. It is a release from societal expectation and an embrace of the unknown. It is living beyond the acceptable and experimenting with who we actually are. But drag is more than a break from reality. It is a journey of embracing all of who you are, your weaknesses, your fears, your insecurities. It is a revelation that makeup, clothes, hairdos, or shoes do not define you. The true art of drag isn't how well you put yourself together, but rather, it is about stripping away all the masks, unpacking all the sealed boxes, and embracing your true self. I have to admit, being told to embrace one's true self sounds trite. It's overused and underexplained. That being said, embracing one's true self, Paul writes, is embracing the truth that we are all frail and broken clay pots. We all mask part of ourselves that we don't think others can handle. We all have boxes from the traumas of our lives that we would rather leave untouched. We try to glamorize our life stories. We take our clay pot and we try to decorate it. We seal up the cracks with putty and primer. We sand down the rough edges and we pretend the pot is perfect, and so are we. Thank you very much. RuPaul told us that we're all born naked and the rest is drag. We come into this world and immediately society starts putting label after label on us. Smart, dumb, tall, short, thin, fat, gay, straight, male, or female. Our clay pots are being defined before we can even say our first words. And then we try to live into those truths before we even get to ask ourselves, who am I? Paul told us that we're clay pots. The labels and decorations we stick on ourselves aren't what define us, though. Paul tells us that what defines us is the great treasure buried within the pot, the power of Christ, the power of God, the power of seeking the truth, the seeking truth that you can live into. This truth tells us that despite what the world sees or thinks about us, despite what we see or think about ourselves, God's power, God's love burns within us. The image of the divine is stamped inside of us, and it calls us to shed all the doubts, fears, insecurities, and to find ourselves actually believing that we are perfectly and wonderfully made, our flaws and all. We have been given this life not to live in fear, but to live loud and expressive and with love. We are born naked, and the rest we make up throughout our lives. I wonder if we're ready to start removing the masks the world has forced us to wear. I wonder what it would take for us to embrace our true selves. I wonder what strength and power is waiting for us if we learn to trust the divine who calls to us. A few verses down from where we camped, Paul writes this: "So we're not giving up. How could we? Even though on the outside it looks like things are falling apart on us, on the inside, where God is making a new life, not a day goes by without the Lord's unfolding grace." Eugene Peterson says that these times are small potatoes compared to the coming good times. And I love that translation that he does for Paul. In her work, A Poem About My Rights, June Jordan writes to reclaim her power. She says, "Even tonight, I need to take a walk and clear my head about this poem, about why I can't go without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my gender identity, my age, my status as a woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not even being the point. The point being that I can't do what I want with my own body because I'm the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin. And who in the hell set things up like this?" She says, "I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. I am my own, my own, my own. And I can't tell you who the hell set things up like this. But I can tell you from now on my resistance, my simple and daily and nightly self-determination, may very well cost you your own life. Jordan exemplifies the audacity of reclaiming her life. She reclaims her value, her worth, her dignity, despite what the world demands of and from her. Church, I pray this for you. I pray you remove the masks and unpack the boxes defining you. I pray you toss the labels and presumptions and instead do the hard but powerful work of learning who you are. I pray that during this season you find yourself face to face with a self-love that is deep and rich. I pray that you learn that you, the real you, the messy you, is loved. I pray you find the audacity to reclaim yourself. You are a clay pot born naked. May you use this gift of life to free yourself and shine so bright that others may do the same. There is so much more to you than meets the eye. And the truth is, you are never too much. Amen.